From the Air Force News Service, this is Air Force Television News with Tech Sergeant Steve German.
Hi there, and thanks for joining us for this edition of Air Force Television News. From the beginning of the war in Iraq, the Air Force has been a big player. Not as big as the Army or the Marines. It is, after all, primarily a ground war. Even so, airmen have been involved even before the first shot was fired. Since the end of Saddam Hussein's regime, the operations tempo in Iraq has taxed the resources of the Army, and the Air Force has assumed several roles, once the responsibility of soldiers. Perhaps one of the best examples can be found at Balad, where a huge hospital operated by the Army is now a huge hospital operated by the Air Force. Tech Sergeant Joy Josephson has our story. Incidentally, you will not see many of the faces involved in her story because of security considerations.
Another patient is admitted to the hospital at Balad. Just one of the hundreds these medics, Air Force, Army, and Australian, will examine this week alone.
We see amputations, we see a lot of blast injuries, shrapnel wounds, ballistic trauma, some fractures, high velocity stuff, 7.62 rounds to blast to everything, a lot of contaminated wounds.
The wounds are more severe. They're critical, more critical than you would see in the States. They stay with you a whole lot longer.
On this day, most of the patients are Iraqis, friendlies, and enemies.
Everyone is treated the same, whether it's an Iraqi prisoner or an Iraqi or one of our soldiers. They're all treated the same. Our compassion goes from one patient to the next throughout the whole thing. It's hard, but we do it.
What goes on here is far from the typical pristine environment of hospitals in the United States. The conditions alone are a challenge.
We avoid dressing changes on the floor because it's a dirty environment, relatively speaking. We're very aggressive about returning patients to the operating room on a regular basis. War wounds are contaminated, dirty wounds, not like what you see in civilian trauma. And as a result, require aggressive debridement cleaning of the wound and multiple trips to the operating room. So by doing that, avoiding dressing changes, avoiding contaminating wounds on the floor, we think we've significantly improved wound care and decreased the infection rate.
Most patients arrive after a quick helicopter ride.
The choppers anywhere from 20, 22 minutes, 25 minutes, can pick them up off the field and have them here. So we have a team that's constantly ready, go out there on a helipad to bring in the litter patients, take them to the emergency room.
As part of the emergency trauma hub for Iraq, the medics here provide the first level of care for the wounded. 6 operating tables, more than 60 patient beds, even a pharmacy. But it's the people who make the biggest difference here. Big breath, big. Trained and ready to do what they've been sent here for, to save lives. Tech Sergeant Joy Josephson, Air Force News, Balad Air Base, Iraq.
The majority of injuries in Iraq among the military aren't from roadside bombs or rocket-propelled grenades. They happen because of ordinary things like lifting, stepping in a hole, dropping something on a foot. There are people in Iraq who treat these so-called non-combat injuries. Our reporter in Balad, Iraq is Tech Sergeant Joy Josephson.
It's the busiest clinic in the hospital at Balad.
The best that I can equate this to is almost like an urgent care clinic back in the States, where not really an emergency room because it's not life and death, but it's more people come in and have something that needs to be treated.
For Major Reinhardt and his physical therapist partner, Major Brian Young, that something is actually a variety of pains and strains.
The biggest things that I see in my patient population is low back pain, mostly from wearing the body armor, an extra 30 to 40 pounds in the Kevlar. It certainly adds a lot when you have to wear it day in and day out. Knee pain from walking the rocks and sports injuries is another big factor, along with ankle pain for the same reasons.
Can you hold that?
Yes, sir.
Examining an average of more than 50 patients every day makes for a hectic schedule for these doctors and technicians. And while the work is constant, what's happening in this clinic benefits more than the patients.
If we're able to keep someone in theater, a troop or an airman in theater or a Marine, that can be managed here with some easy type treatments, then we've maintained our troop levels here. If we send someone home, we cannot guarantee the replacement.
Patients come from throughout Iraq. Rehabilitation services like those provided here don't exist at some of the smaller bases in Iraq.
What we try to do is offer a service and then educate the patient on what they need so that they can take it back to their FOB and still hopefully heal from whatever their situation might be, thereby preventing, again, the possibility that it leads to an air evac.
With the muscle type of injuries, that a lot of repetitive motion type injuries that we have over here, these guys are able to get you in and out, get you back on your feet and doing your mission quite a bit faster.
Majors Young and Reinhardt have seen more than 1,000 patients since arriving here in late September. That's a lot, and the number is increasing every day. But with every successful treatment, every time they can send a troop back to their job, it's a victory, not just for the clinic, but for Operation Iraqi Freedom as well. Tech Sergeant Joy Josephson, Air Force News, Balad Air Base, Iraq.